Welcome to The Fence with your hosts, Mitch
and Gar.
We dive into all kinds of topics that could help you lose weight, build muscle, lose fat, get a little
strong.
More, right?
Sorry.
All of the above. No, that's good. Our goal as your host is to do all those things, and we dive into those topics. We are a podcast by personal trainers for first-time exercisers or those of you guys on the fence to get into strength training. Let us help you get off of that fence and into the body you deserve. And with us today, we have our guest, Gallagher, John Gallagher.
What's going on, guys?
What's happening, man? Thanks for taking the time to get on here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you got a jam-packed full day.
Always.
It looks like you already got some sun, actually.
Dude, all the time.
Yeah.
I'm constantly, like I said, I'm pink all the time. As soon as the summer hits, it's just a constant state of being.
He just leaves the building and he's already pink right away.
Doesn't even need a break of sweat.
No.
Gets to the car, change color.
Wakes
Absolutely.
up. So... Oh, where was I going to go with that? Oh, shit. So, you own a personal, I think it's online personal training. Do you have like a business name for that?
So, it's a long story short, just to kind of recap. So, I launched Iron Republic, which was a nutrition store back about a year before COVID kicked off. Had the nutrition store for a year, and I'd been coaching way longer before I launched the nutrition business, but now it just kind of all falls under that umbrella. We don't have the storefront anymore for the nutrition business.
Okay,
but still coaching online very regularly. I have a passion for the nutrition side of things, so maybe eventually I'll try to get back into that. Then we did an apparel as well, so it's just
cool,
kind of all encompassing with it. But yeah, good branding.
You're gonna have to make sure you text me the link to that website so I can put it on the YouTube video and stuff.
For
like
sure.
That.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. And so you're a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. Are you competing for anything right now?
No. So I haven't competed since the end of 21. So December was my last show. NPC Nationals was 8th in Classic Physique, Class C. So my class weight cutoff is 205.
Okay.
But yeah, I prepped for a long time leading into that show. Did my first show, won that, and then qualified for the national show. Went out just kind of like get my toes wet, kind of see what it would be like competing at that national level. A lot of really great guys, some high-level competitors that are still competing at the pro level now, won their cards that year.
Nice.
But now it's just one of those things where, like, I stepped away. I was way under my weight cap. It was like 13, 14 pounds under. So I was on stage with a lot of people that were...
How tall are you, by the way?
So I'm 5'10" and change. So I was on stage with people anywhere from 5'9" up to just under 5'11".
Okay.
So yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, it's a huge weight range, right? Because you have people that are getting ready for that competition. They're really sucking down to get down to the weight cap of 205. But there's people that are way over that cap.
And you're working to climb up to it.
Exactly, right? So that was my first time being, at that level on that stage trying to make that weight. I just didn't have the muscle mass that I needed. I came in, I was 191 on stage, and the cutoff was 205. Yeah, so I had people on stage, especially after they carb load and stuff. You're talking, they're well over 205. So I was outsized pretty significantly.
That's a brutal sport, man.
Yeah.
How much are you right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm sitting at 227, 226 on average. Yeah. Kind of took my foot off the gas a little bit. Work has been pretty nuts. So not exactly where I want to be training-wise, diet-wise, because, life takes over sometimes. But definitely trying to get back into things and really make a big push here for the summer. Put some weight back on and looking into competing next year.
Trying to be a fit daddy.
That's what I was going to ask
next. Yeah. Trying to get back on stage for sure.
Okay. And you also have a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that real quick.
So I'm one call close sales. Work for a company called Power Home Remodeling. So it's all just completely home renovations. So windows, doors, siding, roofs, that kind of thing. But it's a weird job because you're on call. So you just have to wait for people. You get an appointment. You show up at some stranger's house that you've never talked to before, and you have to basically convince them that they need something for their house and try to help them out where you can. But a lot of times their house is in great shape, so you're just hanging out with somebody for a couple hours.
I feel like you need to have kind of a amicable personality for that, so they can feel like you're not trying to sell them or.
Well, exactly. You're trying to build that relationship while you're there, and you can't Of course, the goal is to try to help them. It's my job to sell things, but you have to build enough of a rapport with the people while you're there that they trust what you're actually telling them. That if you're telling them you need something on your home, they're going to be okay, yeah, I get it, and I see why. But there's also plenty of opportunities where you're talking to people whose house is in good shape, so you're just there kind of giving them a free inspection and letting them know that everything's good and don't worry about it.
Okay. So you do, it's like dual purpose. You're not just trying to sell them on stuff. You're also inspecting the house. Like
right. So like the way that it works is it's, everything is based off of just a free inspection. So we go out, they knock up in neighborhoods where they're like currently doing work. And then what happens is I get sent out to the home if they want like a free appointment for the free inspection. And then if it turns out that they need work while we're there, we'll shoot them a number. And if it makes sense for them, they'll pull the trigger. We can save them a bunch of money. Or if not, they've got an estimate that's good for a full year and they at least know what's going on with their house. So, it's like, it's different. It's very different than anything I've ever done. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. Sounds like a lot of value and kind of a great way to like you said, build that rapport and like get in there. And I bet some of those skills transfer over into the training world.
Yeah, hugely. It's
Of
just
course,
we're from the training
sales, sales skills.
100%.
That's, plus, you being honest too. You said, and a lot of people who you went to with the good house, let's say like that, they will appreciate honesty.
Exactly.
And if they have like a friend who needs it, they refer.
Right, and it's like for me, I look at it as like it's kind of applicable, like you guys said, with everything. But I look at it as like good sales karma. Like, don't try to sell things to people that don't need it. But at the same time, if people
100%.
do need it and I'm doing my job, I'm taking care of them. I'm taking care of their home. Like, it's their largest investment. We got to protect that. So there's definitely a balance there.
You feeling pretty comfortable with like your spiels or answers or responses to like certain things that you probably see arise a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's very like consistent issues. A lot of homes all deal with like the same things. So it's just figuring out how to explain that to the homeowner in a way that it's going to be like palatable for them. And that's a lot of the crossover into fitness for me. Like that's kind of like what I pride myself on, is being able to like take concepts and bring them down to a level where anybody, no matter their level in the fitness game, is going to be able to understand it so they can put it into action.
Yeah, plus adjust to their personality too.
Because everybody's going to be different, right?
Yeah.
There's no one like size fits all for this kind of thing.
Well, it's funny you touch on that because I always say, personal training, you're not paying for their time. You're paying for the years of experience, trial and error of their own time in the gym, as well as explaining the same concepts and being able to break it down and be articulate hundreds and hundreds of times. It's like the same exact thing.
Yeah, and it's huge. And it's like something that I really enjoy about this, because it's like a puzzle, right? And it's figuring out like the need of the athlete, how you need to present that information, and then what's going to like best set them up for success. And it's each individual is going to be different. And that's what like keeps me interested in it, because it's always a constant challenge in like figuring it out for the person.
Yeah. That's cool. And just to elaborate too, I feel like in the beginning of the podcast, I said personal training online, but it's not really personal training. You specifically work with athletes and bodybuilders. Is that correct?
Right. So when I first got started, I did it for free. So, I mean, I've been in the coaching space since 2000.
Tell the whole story about like how long you did that.
Yeah. Okay. So
I found that so intriguing.
Yeah. So I went like little backstory. So I was in the Air Force from 2017 to 2022. So 5 years, 4-year initial contract. And then I had to extend for a year to go on a deployment. But before I left for the military, I played soccer like all growing up. So I was like decent with running, but I was like small. I was skinny. So I knew I had to be in good shape for like basic training. So I started like lifting, trying to get myself a little bit stronger, getting ready to do push-ups and stuff. And it was fun like seeing that progression. And then once I left for the military, after I got out of basic, fast forward like 8 or 9 weeks, right, whatever it is, I was like 155 pounds. So like small, like 21 years old, like full grown man, 155 pounds. I was like, I don't like this. Like I want to be bigger than this. I want to feel better in my skin. And that's kind of like what pushed me into like actually lifting weights. And after I did it at that point, I'd been training for like 3 years, and I felt like I had like a pretty solid foundation of like information and learning things. And then I had enough people in my circle that started like asking me, because they saw the transformations in my physique, right? They were like, oh, what are you doing? How are you doing that? So I started just like slowly feeding out information to like the people that were close to me, my friends. They started seeing results too. And I was like, oh, like this is pretty cool. Like I could do this.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And then I started coaching. I launched it as something I was just doing as like a hobby, and I did it completely for free. I coached like 20 or 30 people throughout like the course of 3 or 4 years, almost 5 years, before I ever tried to charge anybody any money for doing it, just so I could like build a base in figuring out how to like explain these things to people. Yeah.
Which I find amazing, and I guess it makes sense because you weren't relying on that for your income.
Exactly.
But still, I just thought that was so crazy when you told me that story. Training people for free for like 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, and it's, for me, it was like, I think it's the most valuable way for you to build experience as a trainer too. It's like, one, how are you going to charge people for doing things when you're still trying to figure it out? You're still trying to grow your knowledge base. But then on top of that, like, it's in a way, it's like paying you to coach these people for free, because as long as you're like tracking their progress, you're taking pictures of their visuals, like at some point down the road, you're going to be able to
and their
market that in the
numbers,
future,
right.
So it's all, you know, a big
Yeah, that's
circle.
a lot of experience. Yeah.
And we talked about too. So we met at our mutual friend Jake's baby shower / family reunion /
It sounds weird. Jake's
wedding.
baby shower.
Right, yeah, right. There's like 150 people there. It was they had a great spread, and I met a lot of cool people, including this guy. And we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome too, because you know, like you said, it's hard to charge people for something when you're still figuring it out yourself. But like as a personal trainer who is relying on the income, and you're fresh out with your cert and you know everything, you think you know everything, and then like reality hits you real hard, and then you have to struggle kind of through that imposter syndrome.
Oh, I love this. This is something. So my like educational background's in psychology. So there's it's called like the Dunnings Krueger effect, which is pretty cool. So it's basically like you completely overestimate your knowledge base on something, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
You think you know so much, and then you get hit with like this wall of like, oh, there's still so much to learn. So you almost go from like this really high of like self-belief and feeling like you know everything to like, whoa, there's so many levels to this.
Yep.
And then you have to like try to climb back up.
But I feel like it's kind of like a roller coaster all the way. I don't think it stops.
No.
Just kind of life in general, but as a fitness professional too, like I always say, like I'm a perpetual student, because like, you know, you get a new certification or you learn a new concept and you're really proud of it, and you're like you're figuring it out, and then, you know, if you're not growing, you're not, you know, you're shrinking or whatever, I don't know. And so then you learn something new, and you're like, oh, up here, and then you got to roll back down every time.
It's that
Yeah,
it's like constant student mentality.
Yeah, it's like more you learn, less you think you know. Pretty much, you know what I'm saying?
Perfect
I'm
way of
always like
wording
that.
it.
Always freaking like drives me insane.
And it's funny because like the first couple years that I was coaching, like getting good results with people, I'm like, this is easy. Like, how is there not more people doing this? Like, why is there not people making more money doing this? That kind of thing. And it's like the more I learned, the more I realized, like, man, I don't know anything. Like, it's one of those things where there's so much information out there constantly for you to take in that you feel like you can learn so much so fast, but then putting it into practice, like seeing the differences in how people respond to it, that's like when you really start to learn that there's just so much to take in. But that's why I love it.
It's like you said, it's like a puzzle. It's probably like technology too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it was really cool. You were able to see that success from just, you know, bro science, and then, you know, diving in deeper. And then when you have clients with like vastly different backgrounds or goals, different demographics, that's when you're like, oh, like I really need to be able to tailor this, not just from my personal experience.
Yeah, and that's there's so many different like aspects of this game, but that's why I like working with athletes, specifically competitors. It's just because they have a little bit of a different mindset. Like I've had a ton of success working with just lifestyle clients, but what I've found in the past is like the people who are going to get the results that they're looking for when they hire a coach, they have to be extremely disciplined.
Oh, yeah.
And then from like a coaching aspect, when the athlete is more disciplined, it's much easier on our behalf to track that progression and understand what changes we need to make to keep them moving in the right direction. So working with athletes has definitely been something that I've like niched myself into. But at the same time, if you have a lifestyle client that has that discipline, you can make just as much progress. It's just having the commitment from the person that you're working with.
Yeah, but the athletes, what you were saying, right? It's like they will max out in every way possible
Absolutely.
to get there where they want. You know what I'm saying? They will do everything on point as you ask.
Yeah. And that's like, I've got a dude in prep right now. He's competing on August 10th. And like, if I told that guy to eat dirt, like he's eating dirt. Like, it's, you know,
that's
it's like
how,
a joke in the industry, but like, that's how serious people take this. Like, they're committing so much. They're dieting for months at a time. They're suffering because it's,
right.
You know, they're subjecting themselves to it. So it is like, you're deciding to put yourself in that position, but like, it's hard. Like, it's hard to diet for that long. It's hard to diet that hard to get down to like single digit body fat where you are going to step on stage. Like, it's a lot, but it requires you to be in that position where you trust your coach. And if they tell you that you have to do X, Y, or Z, you're just going to do it. It's like, how high if you're asked to jump?
Right. And it's a tough thing to do, you know, placing your faith in somebody. But then, and back to the lifestyle client thing, it can be sometimes so unrewarding if you're not able to get that person to buy in, or they just, I like to say, like, in the end, it always comes down to you. Like, how can you make it work for them? How can you meet them where they are and then try to get them over that hump? But it obviously does take commitment from the client, and it's just so draining.
Right.
When you try everything and they just won't buy in or do what you're trying to tell them, or won't, it's draining. And then it's also, it's your reputation.
Oh yeah, because they are your advertisement at the end. And here's the thing too. Like, I have a lot of like a Russian speaking clientele.
Yeah.
So, and what you guys love to do is freaking mess with me all the time. Yeah, but that girl said this way. I was like, that girl said nonsense. Okay, they will hear freaking like a bean diet gonna like gain them freaking 100 pounds of muscle and lose 50 pounds of fat or something like that. They just go all out on it.
Well,
so
that's like,
it's like a lot of craziness with you guys, like freaking USSR, man.
I love that the fitness community has become like such a big space now, but it's also one of those things where, because it's such a saturated market, there's so much information available online that people are looking at this content, like looking constantly for that magic bullet. Like, oh, this is the extreme. Like, this is what I have to do.
And
to
no
be
one
successful.
does extra research to like make sure this guy says the right thing.
Right.
Too,
It's one of those areas where you can't be so black and white, because there is like individual biology at play, how everyone responds to things, and what might work great for person A is not going to work great for person B.
100%.
But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It's just figuring out like what is going to work for each person. And then, like Mitch, to your point, like when you're working with these lifestyle clients, it's like our job as a coach to try to figure out how to appeal to that, like getting them over that hurdle, whatever it is stopping them. Sometimes it's out of our control, but sometimes it is just like making some manipulations. Like, what is their pain point, and how am I going to address this in a way that's going to get their buy-in?
Right.
And sometimes you have to go to extreme. Like in my case, I did let few clients go because of that. Like, they don't want to listen. They still say someone is saying this way, and I think that's right. I don't like to do this. Listen, then why you are wasting your money?
Yeah. If that's what you think is going to work better for you, then go try. Go dip your toe in that water. You know what I mean? See how it goes for you.
Listen, I love money, but I'm not desperate. Okay, I prefer people to actually get results, and again, building a good karma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a mixed bag for me because, like I've had to, break up with a couple clients for different reasons, totally unrelated from, the fitness side. It's the worst thing in the world, but like, I think it's very important to know that you can, and to try to like spot those red flags and warning signs on that initial, phone call or that initial meeting. You don't have to work with everybody, and that's a beautiful luxury to have, as a beginning personal trainer. If you're relying solely on that income, obviously you're going to take pretty much whatever's thrown at you,
right?
Which is great, because then you get to like hopefully find your niche and see what you do and don't like and learn from different demographics. But it's such a mixed bag because I do believe that anything is better than nothing.
Yeah,
I've come to learn that, at least because there was a similar situation where I've talked about this before on the show, but I had a client and he lost so much weight. He was able to come off different medications. He bought in, he would just go hard. Guy was badass. And then his wife was like, wow, he's seeing all this progress. Yeah. I want a piece of the cake. He buys her sessions, and she just never committed. She thought it was like a magic bullet. And so, just months and months and months of like up, down, same, not committing, not putting in the effort outside, or not even sometimes in the session. And eventually I had this conversation with her, and I didn't handle it right. And I was like, hey, I don't feel right taking your money. You're not doing what I'm trying to get you to do. I want to, see you succeed. And she took it as like, I don't want to train with you anymore. She took it very, I didn't word it right.
Yeah.
It was poorly done. I should have tried to maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so she stopped training with me, and then the husband did too.
Oh no!
And to the extent of my knowledge, she has never picked anything else back up. And I wish, I just would have like kept doing it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, dude.
It is tough, right? Because you'll have those clients, right? Because certain clients, it depends on how much control you have over the situation as a coach. Like, there are certain athletes that I've had the pleasure of working with where I get to oversee everything. Where it's from training to nutrition, any kind of supplement guidance. Even for enhanced athletes, like controlling those kind of variables. But then there's the other athletes that you might work with if you're just personal training, where like you're with them maybe an hour, hour and a half when you're in the gym. You don't know what they're doing the rest of the time outside
Exactly.
of the gym, and that dictates so much of their progress.
Exactly.
Like you can only accomplish so much by lifting the weight. That's such a small piece of the puzzle that being off in all these other areas, like you can only expect your results to be so good. But I think that's where a lot gets lost in the sauce for people. Like, you can't just go to the gym and expect to, wind up on the Olympia stage. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, because listen, man, I do spend most of the day in the gym. You know what I'm saying? That's main income for me. You know what I'm saying? So, but as you said, you just spent 1 hour with the guy, okay? And then it's on you what you're going to do after that. You will listen or you will not. Listen, I love cheesecake, okay? I will eat that every day, all day. But imagine, even me lifting and working hard and doing that, I'm going to roll in next week like a balloon. So
let me ask you guys this, because you guys have, like, I wish that I was able to like train in person a little bit more than I do. Most of everything that I do at this point is online. But being in person with people constantly, like, is there a little bit more like rewardance in terms of like you're actually seeing those numbers climb, you're seeing them push themselves in the gym? Like, what is the favorite part about actually training in person for you guys?
you want to go?
Go ahead.
I'm not going to lie, man. I'm a little bully, okay? It's like I go hard on them. A lot of times I go hard on them.
Yeah.
If they're healthy, I see everything is doing right, form is doing great, more reps or weight. It doesn't matter. I want them to freaking go all out.
Yeah.
Like tempo, I will give you freaking 20-pound dumbbells. Okay, you're a big dude, I will give you 20-pound dumbbells. I want a 5 seconds of eccentric phase and then punching.
Yeah.
Like all this, I will go max out on them. They cannot get away from it when you are there, They might slack. They have a 16 reps, let's say like that, on a dumbbell bench press, right? But they will slack because you don't see them.
Okay.
So what you're saying is your favorite part about in-person training is being a sadist.
I love it. Yes. And that's all that matters. You cannot just do a freaking 10 reps with the 10 pounds and yay, okay, I did my work. That's it. So when you actually could do 30 with that, you need best I'm gonna give it to you is 2-3 reps in a pocket. That's it.
Right. Oh, getting people to like push to that extent, right, where they're actually like training to failure. I think that's one of the most difficult things to teach people, especially like in my position where I'm doing things online. I can ask for form videos, those kind of things, so I can really see, how deep are people taking these sets? Are they really taking them close proximity to failure? Are they actually failing within the set, which is like a huge part of the growth? Whereas like with you guys, you're there in person constantly. You're getting to like track that and see it in real time.
It's a whole different game, dude. Yeah, I've done a little online training. One of my guys that works for me is kind of starting his own thing, and he's building that up, and it's just a whole different thing. I guess you really got to go off of like those form videos and those and progress pictures and stuff, and looking at the stats. But it's totally different. My favorite part about training, I got two. One that's a joke, one that's real. My favorite part about in-home personal training is the dogs. I'll see like 6 different dogs a day.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I freaking love that. But I really like. I like a lot about it. But I guess I really like getting to know the people, learning kind of like what will motivate them. Whether I need to go a little more gung ho or like be a little more laid back. And I have a very wide, variable of different ages and genders and all that. I have like mid-70s clients who are some of my most in-shape people. Yeah. And, they're going to have issues that other people don't. And we just learn to, like, work around them and modify things and still kind of, like, keep getting them towards their goals. I like all of it. I like getting to know them and kind of just, honestly, that's my favorite part.
Yeah. Just the relationships.
The relationships, man, they're great. Like, and if you get, my goal is to have all lifelong clients. Like, I provide them with, my whole thing is I provide, we as Blackout Training, we provide you with the tools, and the fundamentals and the knowledge. We try to empower you, right? We try to teach you why we're doing it. We try to explain it all, provide templates as far as like what you should be doing outside of our sessions and stuff like that. Help them understand like the big 5 or compound lifts. I call it DCOPS, deadlift, chest press, overhead press, pull up, and squat.
Okay.
And creating PDFs about all the different variations of these. This is how you can implement it. And So, but I try to have. I want to have kind of all lifelong clients. I know I'm real chatty right now, but because then you don't have to get new clients. You have really great relationships with them and rapport, and you get invited over for their barbecues.
The barbecue.
True that. Yeah. I just was on the shore just because of that.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
birthday. Yeah.
Dude,
great time.
Lance freaking got invited to a destination wedding in Punta Cana with one of the clients that he works with Blackout Training with.
That's
yeah.
awesome though. And
He just got back like a couple weeks ago.
You don't get those invitations unless you're like making an impact and you're building those relationships. I mean, so to you, it just kind of speaks to like the business model that you guys have going right now.
Freaking wild, yeah.
Doing something right. If you guys
We're
are getting
trying, man.
invited to Punta
A
Cana.
lot of trial and error, dude. I was like, "Where's my invite? I should have taken that
God damn it,
client, man." So, do you have any other experience as far as training in the gym, or other than like what led up to online training?
Yeah, so
I forget.
a couple different things, right? So I mean, kind of like to your point earlier, you're talking about like getting your first like certification. I put a lot of weight into that. Like when I was early on, I was like, oh, I got to have like some kind of piece of paper behind my name that shows like what I know, which ties back into that imposter syndrome thing, like constantly having that feeling like we need to prove ourselves in some way. So I ended up going through ISSA for my first certification. Just personal training certification. Then I did like a bodybuilding specialization. So I picked up both of those. And to be honest, like it was all stuff when I took like the actual materials, you just like read through the materials you're supposed to test out at the end. Like if you have any kind of experience lifting and you've like done your own research, there's a good chance that you could just take those tests without actually looking at the material.
Right.
Just because you know a lot and it's very basic information. And I think it's awesome for that reason because it is kind of just like the ground level foundational things. But it also made me realize like the certification is literally just a piece of paper. Like people know, I've never had a client ask me like, what certification do you have?
I never have it either.
Yeah.
No, Big Box Gym will ask, and I'm trying to do some
the-
corporate boot camps. BlackRock was like, hey, we need your stuff on file, for HR and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've literally never been asked.
But yeah, so I have, I went through ISSA for my first certification, but to be honest, like where I've pulled a lot of my information from, like the things that I've learned. So, because of that background in psychology, at one point I was putting a lot of emphasis on like reading studies. And then as I got like deeper into the like bodybuilding side of things, like the enhanced athlete side of things, I started looking for resources for like other pro level bodybuilders that are in that educational space. And one really great resource that I leaned on a lot, and I actually ended up paying for their coaching course to like become a better coach, was J3 University. It's ran by John DeWitt.
I've heard of it.
Right. So he was a 212 pro, and now he's an open bodybuilder. He's actually competing, I think, this weekend, or just competed last weekend in Toronto. I think he took second. But huge jump to go from 212 into the open physique. But he's like well known as like being that guy in that industry for like just being the brain. A lot of his stuff is very science-based, but he's also not afraid to like include that anecdotal information, because where the science kind of falls short sometimes is a lot of the participants for those studies are like untrained individuals or people who are very early on in their career, which is super valuable depending on what stage you're in for yourself.
Right.
But it's definitely not like all encompassing. Like if you've got somebody who's been lifting for 10 years, they are enhanced, like their progression is going to be totally different than somebody who's maybe just getting started. So it's like those studies are super valuable in some aspects, but they definitely don't like cover the entire spectrum of someone's training career.
And I know that a lot of those studies too.
Yeah.
A lot of those studies,
Grab my interest.
I know they're like doing a lot more. There's tons of updated studies, but I listen to a lot of these different podcasts out there, and they're really good reads. Well, listens depending. Some are more sciencey, some are more bro science. And the real sciencey ones, man, they're kind of a pain in the butt to listen to, and sometimes really difficult to read through.
Right.
I'm going back over these paragraphs like 5 times. But that's going to go over the heads of like general population. First off, and second off, a lot of them are like really outdated that these guys are going over.
It's really tough because it's one of those situations where there's both sides of that spectrum. It's like there's new research that's coming out, like right now the new hotness. If you look on anything like on TikTok and on Instagram, like any YouTube, everybody's talking about like this new research that's come out really supporting like being in the stretch and how much that's like for muscle growth. But like these are not things that are like uncommon or unheard of in bodybuilding. Like people were talking about that for decades, but it's like now the science is starting to support
Catching up. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
But then
right.
like on the opposite side of that coin, like there's plenty of things that like the bro science community, which we'll just throw that in air quotes, people that have just been like doing it through action for years and years and years, were able to find like what was effective before there was like all of this research for everyone to be reading through.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's like trying to blend the two and figure out like what works the best. But it's one of the things I dislike the most about the current fitness community. It's like so polarizing. It's like you either need to be science-based or you're a meathead. You can't be both. And it's like it's not how, like, do you approach anything in life that way? Like where it's either this or that and there can't be any crossover? Like what kind of person I don't
No, 100%.
understand it.
Yeah.
You might have more knowledge in science or less. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's it, pretty much.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's finding the balance because both are going to work. It's just really, to me, it's super dependent on like where you're at in your journey, what your goals are, and then like what you respond to. Like training in a very like specific, controlled way, science-based, like maybe you love that and maybe it works super well for you. Or maybe if you try to train like that, you cannot stand it and you don't want to go to the gym. You're not excited about it. You're not looking forward to it. So like there has to be some like bend, some compromise for each person to figure out what they're going to love, like what's going to get them doing it consistently, because that's
In long term, you know?
right. Like that's at the end of the day, like none of it matters if you're not going to be able to do it sustainably and consistently over a long period of time. Like you're not going to get what you want out of it if
That's
you can't keep
why
doing
they
it.
push in the stretch and like super slow eccentrics. Like I think it started from becoming popular. It started from RP, Renaissance Periodization.
Yeah, Dr. Mike,
yeah. Mike Israetel. Yeah.
I think again, like super great resource, but even him, like there's other podcasts that I've listened to him on where like he's very open about when he talks about these things. Like, yeah, there is absolutely a science-based way and like a most optimal or effective way to do things, but he'll be the same one to tell you like, yeah, if you want to eat like protein bars and, you know, all these like simple foods that get in when you just like need calories, like sometimes you just got to do what you have to do. So it's like being able to blend both of those worlds and not being so absolute that like one way is the only way to do it. Like clearly
his stuff is more like at the end, calories in, calories out is the king. So he was saying that, he said that a few times. That's why he was like, when he was in a bodybuilding prep time, I don't know if you see his Instagram, on the pictures, a lot of times you see him just like Gatorade and 3 protein bars. This is my pre-workout, or this is my something meal. And I was like, God damn it, man.
hey, whatever gets the job done.
I get bloated from that right away. Like just seeing that shit.
That's a perfect example, though. Like if you tried to eat that, you're going to get bloated. You're not going to feel great. He can eat it, and apparently there's no problem.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think you saw his pictures too when he was getting for a competition. He's still lean as hell.
Yeah.
He still remained pretty lean. I think he's getting ready for another one now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, though, because it's like one of the other things that Instagram has kind of made difficult is like everybody's posting their highlight reels constantly. But outside of that, when we look at like people who look insane, like these people who you look at their pictures and are like, whoa, this doesn't even look real. There's so much of that, like carrying so much muscle gives your body such a different look. Like you're able to maintain such a lower body fat when you have a certain amount of muscle. Like these things really like lend themselves to being like Instagram ready. Whereas like somebody who's much newer in their journey, not carrying that much muscle, like you might be super lean, but if there's not a lot of muscle there to show, like it's not going to translate the same, especially on social media.
Yeah.
Right. Or on camera in general, you know.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking, you said, you know, you were 155 9 weeks into, I guess, after basic, and you were like 155 soaking wet. I bet you had like six pack, then you'd have to try. But at what price, you know? Like,
right. Like, I was, even that, I was just like a blade of grass. Like I felt like I could blow away in a strong gust of wind. And it was not like a way, like as a grown man, it's just not like a way that made me feel like confident in my own skin.
Especially like in the Army, you're probably around a bunch of big dudes for the most part, I would think.
You'll be surprised.
Well, I guess in the Air Force.
Probably Marine Corps. Yeah. Marine Corps, God damn it, man. All of those bastards are big as hell. Like when I was on the AIT, I don't know, they call it in the Air Force AIT too?
AIT.
Like, it's a profession where you learn your profession after basic.
Oh, yeah. They just call it tech school for us.
Tech school?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had the joint base. We had the Navy guys. We had the, I don't remember if I ever seen Air Force, but we had the Navy guys, Marines, and the Army. So Marines, like freaking, you would see veins from their eyes. Like, probably they were in a lot of gear and no one cares there.
Really?
Yeah. I don't believe they care in the Marine Corps.
So does that mean no drug testing at all? They just don't test for that?
Okay,
like,
so
they drug test for drugs.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of like the workaround. So it's not that they don't or won't test for it, but like testing for those things is a lot more expensive. So if you're getting drug tested regularly, like my job, so I was security forces, so basically like a cop. So we got drug tested pretty regularly. But with that, when they're doing those drug tests, it's literally for like party drugs. Like you're not going to pop hot on that kind of drug test if you have steroids in your system. And they won't test you for that unless you like give them a reason.
Exactly.
Like have some roid rage incident. They're like, well, you're a problem now. You're a liability.
There's a few things like roid rage or very quick gain in weight, but quality gain and stuff like
even
that
like-
and stuff like that.
Like without naming any names, like there's definitely some like influencers that are in the military that you
Oh,
could tell
hell
are like
yeah.
enhanced athletes for sure. And it's like they have to know, like they don't pass the eye test first of all, but at the same time, like if you're not being sloppy about it, if it's not impacting your job, if you're not like leaving things out, like one of the things that we found when I was in the Air Force was like the people that would really only get in trouble were like people that were living in the dorms, because there would be dorm inspections. So if they went into your dorm and you had like your stuff out, like, well, you're kind of like forced their
You're
hand. Now
done,
they have to
boy.
trust you. Yeah, like, but as long as you're not an idiot about it, they're not like out to get people for that.
Okay. Yeah,
They just
that
don't
makes
want you
sense.
doing drugs.
Sure. And they're like, hey, we want these guys to be fit. Like,
Right. Like, I think the
Yeah,
mentality around that's even like kind of starting to finally shift, where it's like, I don't know about you guys, but like growing up, like talking about steroids,
Steroids,
hearing
it's
about
very-
steroids,
it was like, oh.
yeah, like you're going to deteriorate your knees, like you're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
die
Right
by
now,
the time
no
you're
one cares.
30.
Like-
Yeah, now it's like it's the opposite.
15 years
almost.
old,
balls
it's
are
like,
gonna shrink in
can I
there."
take this?
yeah. It's much more. Yeah, I was actually listening to a podcast the other day, and they were like, yeah, it's like much more widely talked about, and like it's like about. I don't want to say it's about or optimization per se, because it is not, but but there's just like healthier ways of doing it. There's more research and science. It's definitely more widely talked about and accepted.
Oh, yeah.
That conversation is definitely being had a lot more, but because everyone has a voice now, it's like both ends of that extreme
Yeah.
again, where it's like people that have no business talking about that kind of stuff are like telling kids to like go out and this is what they're taking, this is what you should take. It's like, whoa, pump the brakes a little bit.
Brain
buddy.
is
Right.
not developed fully to like 25, and
Yeah.
they're still like pushing that when the kids are like 16.
Right.
Oh, we did an episode
boy.
on supplements, and we really just dove into like our top 3: creatine, protein, and pre-workout. You
Yeah.
know, and we touched on like a couple other things, but I think over that episode probably 5 times we're like, and in no way are we a nutritionist or a dietitian or a doctor. you
Just
know?
saying.
We had to throw that out there, man.
Just a disclaimer.
Even just talking about that stuff, I just said I had to be safe.
Yeah.
So tell us some personal practices, hacks, or tactics maybe that would be that you've used and that might also be useful for somebody that's just getting into the gym or trying to learn more, get more educated on strength training, or just to be consistent.
I think the best way is doing a little bit of experimentation, like within very specific guidelines, especially when you're starting out. Like if you have the means where you can hire a coach, just hire a coach. Like why would you not? And the only reason that I say that is to your point earlier, Mitch, like you were saying, like you're paying for someone's experience. You're basically paying so you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. So you're able to really cut down your time in making that progress that you clearly want to make, because you're getting started in the gym. But in that, you also have to figure out like what's going to work well for you, what's going to be sustainable, kind of like we talked about. So for me early on, when I started, I just wanted to get big and strong, because I thought like, oh, like a big muscle is a strong muscle. The stronger I get, the bigger the muscle will get. So I'll look much bigger. I'll gain a bunch of weight, and then I'll be able to move a bunch
good
of
bro
weight. So,
science.
yeah, I feel, exactly.
Kind of makes sense though.
Like, this is what I got to do. And I like went down that road for like the first few years that I was lifting, just trying to lift as heavy as I humanly possibly could.
With no system,
Right, but no system. It was
Right.
just like,
beating yourself
In
up.
there.
yeah. And it's
I did that for years and years and years.
Yeah, man.
yeah. And it's like maturing enough to realize that you have to control a lot of those variables, but still do it in a way that's going to be fun. Like after I got past the like wanting to be strong phase, I realized that I got really strong, but I still looked kind of like a wet noodle.
Ooh, by the way, what's your numbers now?
My
Squat,
numbers
deadlift,
now,
bench press.
to be honest, I don't even know. I don't do a lot of like compounds anymore.
Okay. At your best.
At my best, so my best, I got 405 on bench for 4 or 5.
Okay.
I never tried to like 1 rep max. It's like injury mitigation for me is always
Probably
been, like,
450.
super important. But yeah, and then deadlifts. I don't think I ever tried to pull more than 5 plates. I've got the worst lower back in the history of lower backs. If I bend over too fast, my back's like, ooh. So
Look
Is
into
that why you're
the
staying away from the compounds there?
look into the Stuart McGill's big gift of injury.
yeah. And then as far as squats go, like I've thrown 6 plates on just to like see how many reps I could get it for. I've gotten it for a few, like not with them, but to me, as long as I was like hitting depth, I'd try to. But like now, if I tried to throw 6 plates on a bar right now and get under it, it's going to crush me. I haven't lifted like that in forever.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I'm old. I'm 32. So
Aren't you older than him? Aren't you 34?
I know. 36, bro.
Oh, shit.
And
No,
I
but-
still say I'm young as hell. So
the reason that I say that I'm old though is when I look at like the sport, like I look at all the people that are competing currently,
as an athlete.
right? Like and that's what I mean. Like I don't feel old. I
Right,
feel
right,
great.
right. Except for your
Like,
back.
Well, yeah, exactly. My back has felt old since I was 20 years old. But my like when I look
when
at
I
the
was
rest of
born,
the
my back was
competitive-
old. Yeah, he was born like. Oh boy.
I love that. But the rest of the sport, though, they're like, there's these guys that are like in their mid 20s that are like 300 pounds in the off season, screaming lean, and it's like when I look at those guys, I'm like, man, I'm old. But in terms of like just how I feel, and 32 is still plenty of time. I'm just trying to make sure that I accomplish my goals before I'm old enough to be in the Masters, which is 35. So
You gonna be in the Master?
no, so the goal is to get my pro card before I turn 35.
Okay.
That way, because I figure, I don't understand. They like move they've for the amateur level to get their pro card. Like the Masters is 35, which like I feel like for a lot of men is like the peak of their bodybuilding career. Like they're
Yeah, it's about that
but
age.
like now it's like they're treating 35 like they're geriatric. Like
Really?
they need their own division because
I
they're
mean-
so old.
Check this out. I mean, it might be understandable just because if you see how early in the age it moved to start taking roids and stuff. And at 19, 20-year-old, people are freaking already looking like a 27, 28 and the
Right,
freaking
muscularity
giant
for
and
sure.
stuff. Yeah.
And that's like to my point. What I was saying when I feel like I'm old, it's because like I didn't start anything. Like when I competed, like now I'm enhanced, but like I didn't start taking anything until I was like 25, going on 26. I'd lifted from the time I was 17, going on 18, all the way up to 25.
That's great.
Before I ever like dabbled in those waters because I wanted to maximize my natural potential, which was not great. So
The genetics are shitting on you.
yeah, it was like it was just the devil that I needed, to be honest. Because 155 pounds as a grown man was not putting me on.
That's tough. How old were you?
20. I was going on 22. So yeah, since
I was
then-
that weight when I was like 16, and then I started getting into the lifting and compounds and stuff, and
Yeah,
I bulked up pretty
Man,
quick.
I was 18. I was about 140-ish. 140-ish.
yeah. So
Or
you were like
drumstick.
too,
Yeah.
and you're tall too. How tall are you?
6'3" almost.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not that man. You are a big dude.
Big lanky boy.
Hey, I'm enhanced now. I'm on the TRT, but it
Yeah.
still cannot get a.
Does that count as enhanced?
Yeah.
What if you're just optimizing it instead of?
Right. I think it would be like
Because I'm on TRT for optimization. I was at like 400 and working out, looking the best of my life.
Yeah.
And I was at 400, and I'm up to like 1080 was my last.
Nice.
Okay, but you're still technically.
So if you go beyond that, then I think,
it's
I guess.
on a higher level of natural improvement.
yeah, see, you're
It's
still like within
yeah.
that reference range. Which, by the way, like, where do they come up with that reference range? It's
I
huge.
know. I think it's. I try to educate all my clients on that. All of my male clients.
Funny thing is, over time, not only by testosterone, but on other like minerals and stuff, or these reference numbers, like a minimum and maximum, good or bad, been going down.
Yeah.
Like really been going down. It was like 20 years before it was like higher numbers.
Right. Well, to the point of that, like they're finding, I don't know if you guys like pay any attention to this, but they're like finding all kind of plastics and like
Microplastics, nanoplastics.
They're
Hell yeah.
talking about how our testosterone levels are like the lowest that they've been.
We actually did one episode about it too.
Yeah.
Like partially we talked about plastics.
But it's funny how that like range is now like just because like men's testosterone levels aren't quite getting as high as what they used to be. They're like, oh, we'll just bring the range down a little bit to what's going on. We'll just slide that scale a little bit.
3 to 900. That's ridiculous, isn't it? 3 to 900. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's something like that. And I think it's different in other places, like other countries. That reference range is
Other countries have their shit together a lot more than we do in America, as far as a lot of that stuff. As far as like nutrition labels and stuff that they'll allow in certain products.
Yeah, way less ingredients in other countries than here.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just hearing it. You may have heard of this. Alzheimer's. I just read this article that it's actually in every other country except for America. It's referred to as diabetes 3 because it's the next progression of diabetes.
Type 3.
Oh.
And it's not that you don't have access to the memories, or it's not that you don't have the memories, it's you don't have access to it, because it's like further calcification and whatnot. I don't know the exact science.
So how are they tying that into diabetes? Is it
because it's the third
insulin
form.
related,
Yeah,
or-
it is.
okay.
It's the third stage essentially. It's like the third version of was crazy, and I want to read more about it. But I just thought that was wild. That, like we're the
there
only
is
country I think that uses the term Alzheimer's. I can't say it.
Check the channel Low Carb Nation or something like that on the YouTube. they talk about it. That's what I heard too. And it's pretty much at 1970s or so, there was rarely, the Alzheimer's were rarely found. And now, damn.
It's because of the shit in our food.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Ugh, wouldn't be surprised, right?
I don't want to keep you over, so we'll go into these last parts right here. What's something you would tell your younger self?
Oh man, what a loaded question. Loaded question. If I was going to talk to my younger self, man, there's so many things.
I know.
I would probably tell myself some winning lottery numbers. No, if it was
Buy a Bitcoin,
I was going to say the same thing.
and NVIDIA.
philosophically speaking, though, if I was going to talk to my younger self, I would probably just tell myself you're where you need to be. I'm somebody who's I try not to live with a lot of regrets. I just kind of take life as it happens to me. These things happen for a reason. They're part of why I am who I am today. And I've come to like myself pretty well at this point. So I think as much as it would be nice to go back and give myself some advice, it's just live, be present, live. Whatever happens is going to happen. You'll get through it.
So important. It's so valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 5 years from now, I still would come back and remind myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Okay. Give me some plugs. Resources. Any books, life-changing books, audio books, podcasts, anything out there?
So definitely J3 University for sure. Even Renaissance Periodization. I think they're two really great resources.
They are about to have a class soon too, I believe.
Yeah. I think they're starting their J3 starting their level 2 coaching. I was actually thinking about signing up for that. But
that's a good idea.
Another one that's a really good resource too, trained by JP, so Jordan Peters. He has a forum where he has a bunch of other professional athletes as well as other coaches that are on his team, where they will break down everything: diets, training, contest protocols,
programming,
everything. And you're getting feedback from people that are in that field full time, are professionals at what they do. So it's just a really great resource. And I think for people that maybe can't afford a full-time coach or a monthly coach, that kind of thing, you can get signed up for these apps, for these forums. They're $10, $15 a month for some of them. It's a really great resource for somebody who is maybe on a limited budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people came. I couldn't afford my services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't pay for a trainer. Give us the plugs, man. Websites, social medias.
So not on social media right now, but what I am going to do, I'll plug.
I'm proud of you, not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I miss those days.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice at this point. But
I'm envious of it.
My wife is a coach as well. She works more specifically with women.
Built by K.
Yeah, Built by K. So I was going to say, if you guys, especially the female listeners that you guys have, if you're a little bit weird about working with dudes, definitely go her way. She works with all kinds of athletes, whether they're competitive or just lifestyle. I
was checking out her Instagram. She gave me a follow. I followed her back.
Yeah.
You must have been talking about the podcast, and I want to ask her to be a guest on the show because we don't have enough female guests. We've only had 2 female guests.
That would be great.
And a ton of guys.
Yeah, she would definitely be down for it. But yeah, find her on Instagram, Built by K, very easy to find. If you guys wanted to reach out for me in any way specifically, Team J2T@gmail.com is going to be the easiest way to get a hold of me at this point for coaching. Definitely open to lifestyle clients, but I just want people who are going to be committed. You know what I mean? Be as committed to me as I'm going to be committed to you. And that's what's going to make the relationship work and you get the results that you want to get. But, always looking for people who are dedicated and want to work hard.
Beautiful.
Solid.
All right, guys. Well, that's been an episode. Thanks for being on the show, bro. You were a huge asset for our listeners. So much value. And we appreciate each and every single one of you. To stay up to date on all things that we are up to or will be up to, shoot us an email at mitchellblack@gmail.com. You can give us a follow or DM us or comment on any of our posts if you would like to request a topic for us to cover. Give us a follow on Instagram at @thefence_podcast, on YouTube at The Fence Podcast, and wherever you listen to your podcast, simply at The Fence. We'll see you next time.
Damn, man, you stole my part.
Sorry, please. Yeah, but we're right on the dot.
I'll bully you later.
Yeah, kick my ass.